Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Now, as we open up the slides, fundamentally, I'm going to talk about something completely different. Lake Resources is focused on producing a consistent, clean, high-quality lithium to the sector that provides batteries for electric vehicles, and this is a very large growing sector, but doing that in a way which doesn't just deliver a high-quality product, but does that in a better way with better ESG outcomes, responsibly sourced, environmentally more friendly. So I will be making some forward-looking comments. These are on slide 2, and this presentation is available on our website at lakeresources.com.au and was also released to the ASX on the 18th of February. We can move to slide 3, please. So fundamentally, what Lake Resources does is provides a cleaner solution to the growth in electric mobility. Electric vehicles, and to a lesser extent, energy storage, needs cleaner, better batteries. As the world transitions from gas-guzzling internal combustion engines to electric vehicles, it doesn't want to repeat the errors of the past. It wants better quality products going into those batteries. And the approach we take, we just treat water. These projects, they're called brines, but it's basically a salty water with lithium dissolved in it. And we use a water treatment where we just take the lithium straight out of the water without any of the other products. And by doing that, it produces a very high purity lithium product. We do that in conjunction with our technology partner, Lilac Solutions. They're based out of California in the United States. And one of the key benefits of that process is we get a much smaller physical footprint and water usage footprint. We return virtually 99% of the water back to its source, and in the process produce a high quality product. Now, as soon as you mention the word new, investors can be concerned. We've demonstrated a path to production. We're financed now, thanks to a capital raising in January, to take us through the construction finance round in a little less than 18 months' time. We've run a successful pilot plant in conjunction with Lilac now for nearly 12 months in California, and we'll run that all of this year. We're going to put a demonstration plant on site as well in the latter part of this year. It would have been in 2020 if not for COVID. It's cost competitive and scalable, and we are now just getting on and delivering. Next slide, please. So what's powering this sector? What's powering it is this demand for electric vehicles. And the best way to measure that is not just the number of electric vehicles that go out the door, because as you can imagine, the size of the battery is different depending on what the performance is, but actually measuring the growth in mega factories. Now, mega factories are the ones that actually produce the batteries that go into these electric vehicles. Last year, despite the pandemic, we saw the number of battery factories increase from 70 to 181, with 118 of those actually operating. That's a massive increase, and we're seeing more going forward. The compound growth we're looking to deliver into that is between 20 to 25% year on year, and some people have actually suggested perhaps 40% compound growth over the coming 10 years. That's a massive increase. That needs new supply, but not just any lithium. It needs to be a high quality product and preferably with an ESG benefit. So all lithium stocks have increased during January and February. That's thanks to a final spike in lithium pricing. But I'm going to talk about what makes us different. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, Lake basically delivers a solution to this demand. First of all, on high purity products. These are needed to avoid performance issues. Secondly, being more responsibly sourced and sustainable. That's because the physical footprint is smaller, a lower CO2 footprint, much lower water usage, lower land use, and still doing that in a cost competitive way. Next slide, please. In October 2020, we demonstrated that we can produce an ultra high purity lithium carbonate, 99.97%. What does that mean? Battery grade or battery quality is, as a rule of thumb, considered to be 99.5%. This is more than 60 times more high purity. It basically means there's just lithium in it and nothing else. Next slide, please. Fundamentally, no other company has been able to deliver that sort of purity at this sort of scale. So it is a new field, and yet we're still doing it in a cost-competitive way. On the left-hand side of this cost curve in the grey area are the brine producers. We fall in there. But because this is a premium product, it gets a premium price, and so our margins are much more healthy. Next slide, please. Another key benefit, smaller environmental footprint. We're talking a footprint to put this plant in our salt lakes of about the size of 1 or 2 city blocks, instead of 15 or 20 square kilometres of evaporation pond, or digging another hole in the ground. Next slide, please. And if we look at the CO2 footprint, all brine producers are quite small, including ourselves. We're going to be using a solar hybrid solution to provide power here, which makes our CO2 footprint smaller. But the key difference here is that not only is it physically smaller, but a much smaller water usage. Next slide, please. So how does direct extraction work? Basically, this is just water treatment. There's no mining involved. And the water treatment method we use, ion exchange, has been used widely for the last 70 years. It just hasn't been adapted for lithium. And that's what our technical partner, Lilac in California, have done. It's efficient. We remove just the lithium. It's fast. We do it in the space of 2.5 hours, not months or years. It's a higher recovery, so you actually utilize the entire resource, and yet it's still cost competitive. We can scale up because it's modular, and as I mentioned before, environmentally friendly. Next slide, please. So how does it look? Just imagine a salt lake like Death Valley in California. Underneath that salt lake is this salty water, which contains brine and lithium. We pump that brine, that salty water to surface, and we put it in small tanks, what we call modules, about 50 of them. And then inside each module are these little beads, about the size of tiny little rice grains. And those beads bond onto the lithium, no chemicals involved. We can then release the water after 2 hours. We strip the beads in about 10 minutes and then reuse it. And it just goes over and over again. What that does is produce a very high purity liquid called lithium chloride. And then we use the same processing method that other brine producers use to convert it into lithium carbonate. Next slide, please. And the beauty of this process is that it scales up. What we're doing in our pilot plant in 1 or 2 modules, we can do in 50. And this is something that's quite unique in the industry. As the demand comes to get more lithium of a high quality and doing that quickly, we've got the confidence we can do that, because what happens in 1 tank or 2 happens in 50 or happens in 100. Next slide, please. All right, so that's the process. Why do we produce a high quality product? To deliver and avoid performance issues. Why are we doing that with an ESG benefit? That's what electric vehicle makers want. That's what the market is looking for. And where are we? Where are our projects? Our projects are located in the prime location for lithium brines in the world, what's known as the lithium triangle. Chile and Argentina produce about 40% of the world's lithium, all at the lowest cost, and all of the big 5 producers are here either by themselves or in equity in one of the projects. Our flagship project is the one at the lower end of the image here, our Catchy Project, but we have other projects next to the big boys at Kalchari and Olaroz, which join Orocobre and Lithium Americas in their joint venture with Ganfeng. Over 220,000 hectares of mining leases across 4 projects. Next slide, please. Our flagship project, Catchy, which is 100% owned, has a large resource. Of the resource we've already defined, less than 20% is used over 25 years of production at 25,000 tonnes per annum. It's a large lease area. It's the size of New York City or 12 times Manhattan Island, and that's just the Catchy project. And the beauty is this project is eminently scalable. Next slide, please. So it's large. It's expandable. We know the resource is open both laterally and at depth, and we explained this in our resource statement in 2018. It's quite a clean brine. It doesn't have a lot of impurities in it, and that lends itself to producing a high quality product. We've done a pre-feasibility study that demonstrates this is a long life, high value project and can be eminently scaled up. Cost competitive, around $41.70 a tonne, and probably that price will be a little bit lower on operating costs. Sorry, that cost will be a little lower because when we come out with our definitive feasibility study, it'll include solar power and eminently scalable. Next slide, please. Furthermore, when we delivered our pre-feasibility study, that was back in March, April 2020. Since then, we've demonstrated that we can produce a high quality product, which gets a premium price. If we put a premium price of, let's say, $15,000 a tonne into this model, that project value goes through more than $1.5 billion US post-tax, and we have an EBITDA, an operating cash flow line, which is half the capex of 540 million. So it becomes quite a compelling project, and that's just the first one. Next slide, please. When the plant is built, this is basically what it would look like. On the right-hand side, where the letter A is a warehouse with those tanks or modules that I was talking about. That replaces 15 or 20 square kilometres of evaporation ponds, and then the rest of the plant is roughly the same. So this is how it will look roughly when it's produced. Next slide, please. So our production timeline, what we're focused on this calendar year and for the next 18 months, completing that definitive feasibility study, demonstrating that this process works on site through a demonstration plant, having all of those studies completed for approvals and then construction finance in about 18 months' time, and then getting that into construction and into production in 2024. Earliest would be the end of 2023. Other news items you can expect is who we're talking to with our offtake agreements and some results coming out of how our product performs in batteries. Next slide, please. So how it performs in batteries, we've partnered with a company called Novonix, listed on the ASX, ticker code NVX. This is a standout company. It was the spin-out of a technical laboratory at Dalhousie University in Nova Scotia, Canada. That was headed up by one of the gurus in battery technology over the last 10 or 15 years, called Dr. Jeff Dahn. He then went and worked with Tesla, and just in the last few weeks has come back to Novonix. Tesla has extended their funding out to 2026, and we are going to be able to demonstrate how well our high-quality product works in a high-quality battery. And that helps us then in discussions with electric vehicle makers and battery makers. Next slide, please. Apart from our flagship project, Catchy, we also have our Kalchari project. It actually adjoins Orocobre and Lithium America's Gangfeng. Very similar brines, and we're really the only junior in this area, and so this would be the next project to develop. Next slide, please. We're currently funded through to construction, market value of between 300 and 400 million Australian. Our share price has lifted somewhat, but most of that was just catch up with our peers, because this is really the first time we've been fully funded through to a key milestone, and there's a lot of news coming, particularly with our relationships. Next slide, please. And in comparison, our nearest peer would be Standard Lithium in the United States. They're TSX listed, ticker code SLL. They're also using direct extraction and also have demonstrated a high quality product. Basically, the focus now amongst ESG focused funds is to find this sort of company, and we're almost unique in being able to produce that quality product, to scale it up and have that ESG benefit. So a large amount of money looking for a scarce number of companies, including ourselves. Next slide, please. So in summary, clean high purity lithium using clean technology, and this is essentially a solution for the 21st century. Responsibly sourced, sustainable, and ESG benefit, almost a unique proposition. If you'd like more information, please go to our website, lakeresources.com.au, or email me directly at steve@lakeresources.com.au. More than happy to field this. As I mentioned, this presentation is available on our website and was released to the market on the 18th of February. Thank you very much.